Hello, everyone. Welcome. Although I'm the late one today. All right, let's call to order at 4:07. Let's see. Jump to roll call. But we don't have Crystal. Do we have?
Am I allowed to do it as past secretary? Is that legal? Am I allowed to fill in as secretary? Just do the roll call, or?
Yeah, because we don't have. Should be fine, right?
Yeah.
Do we have?
I just want to make sure I'm not
an updated.
violating any laws here, but legal, thumbs up. All right, for the record, Landon Miller doing the roll call. We'll reflect that in the notes, but John Adunco.
Present.
Michelle Anderson.
Present.
Brian Bosma.
Present.
Christine Brown Callagher.
Here.
Melissa Dedmond. Here. Kaylin Evans. Laura Garfinkel.
Here.
Jabari Goodridge, absent at this time. Crystal Herrera Woodley, absent at this time. Victoria Mason, absent at this time. Landon Miller present. Chris Morgan.
Here.
Manny Ortiz.
Here.
Ralph Rodriguez.
Here.
Dave Shintani.
Here.
David Taylor, absent at this time. Sarah Gobbs-Hill.
Here.
And Tegan Richardson. All right, that's enough for a quorum. We're good.
All right. Get my pen stuck in my hair. Fun. All right, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the minutes. Oh, wait, roll call, sorry. That's what happens when you get running around like crazy. All right, we're good for roll call. Sorry, I like literally running around. Okay, so do we have any public comment at this time?
None at this time.
Okay. Moving right on through. Do we have any special guests that were part of public comment or anything? No. Nope. Okay. No. Perfect. All right. Now moving up to item 2.01, approval of the minutes of the February 5th, 2024 Education Alliance Board of Directors meeting. Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved. Christine Callagher for the record.
Okay.
All right, and I will second that.
All right. Perfect. Any discussion? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Okay. On item 2.02, presentation discussion by Sarah Gobbs-Hill, Executive Director on Education Alliance Community Engagement Events, including Principal for a Day, Partner in Education, Pi Champion Awards, and Teachers Warehouse.
Excellent, thank you. So thank you guys so much for coming today. I just wanted to share that for those of you who were part of the Principal for a Day, and a lot of the board here did have the opportunity to participate in that event. It was really fantastic. We had about 70 principals participate, and about the same from our community. We heard really great things in terms of just the experience that they got going into the classrooms, going into the schools, and really getting to see just some of the realities that our teachers are dealing with and our principals are dealing with. I feel really lucky that that is the first thing that I got to do in my role here, because I'm a huge fan of public education, and I believe it to be very difficult, like those jobs, and so it's lovely when you get to invite the community in so that they get to experience it. We had representation from a wide range of from our school district, and you guys know we have one of the largest school districts in the nation, and we had folks participating from Natchez Elementary all the way up to Incline, from North Valleys to the south. So I was really excited about that. We were really lucky that we had a number of folks from the Northern Nevada Latino Stakeholder Council join, and I heard from principals how excited they were about that in terms of representation as it pertains to our students and what that meant. So that was really great. We had our guest principals, I'm just going to read out a few here. Channel 2 News anchor joined us. We had the Reno Planning Commissioner join us. A City Sparks council person, Community Health Alliance CEO was involved, I-80 Gold Community Relationships, NV Energy Senior Project Manager and their education outreach joined us, which was really fantastic. We had folks from the Chamber of Commerce, as well as Reno City council members, Washoe County commissioners, and we had the county manager involved this year, which was really fantastic. And in terms, we really heard, just great things from our community, but one of the quotes that we wanted to highlight, and I think is in your highlight there, but we had a community member say they were surprised a principal could remember over 400 kid names and make them be seen and known. And since that's related to really the mission statement here, that is, I feel like a profound impact when we see that. In terms of this year's program, which I really feel like was really great, and I think really hats off to this group to help, but we had way more media coverage of the event. So Channel 2's news was there, Channel 4, 8, and the Tahoe Tribune did an article. We also we tried to make a concerted effort to share about this on using LinkedIn and Facebook and a little bit more social media in the past, and we saw quite a bit of jump over 250% for a lot of those followers. We saw a lot of increase. And so I think that's going to help us as we are starting to share the needs that we want to help fundraise and support here at the district, that we can help do that by connecting people that way. So that was just a huge piece there. And then over half of our board participated. I know for those of you who couldn't, it's because you're incredibly busy, but that was really fantastic to come in and have people at both the chamber as well as the day of and just spend time supporting our principals that way. So that is a highlight from Principal for a Day. In terms of the Partners in Education Championship Awards, I just wanted to give an update on that. So in December, we met with some really amazing supporters for public education. We met with Lifestyle Foundation, the EL Court Foundation, Ann Silver at the Chamber, Kendall Inskip was also a PIE champion, as well as Jerry Smith of the Redfield Foundation. And we're still working in coordination with our partnership at Channel 2 just to find out about their bandwidth in terms of finishing out and doing those videos. Right now, those are not completed, but we're hopeful we can go forward so that we can continue to highlight people that direction. And then the last update that I wanted to share with you in terms of the work that we've been doing is around the warehouse. We continue to just kind of look at the things that Education Alliance is working with, but we've been able to identify a specialized volunteer and ambassador who's helping us by visiting the warehouse on a pretty regular basis and making posts about what she sees in there and ways that she's able to use it. And so we're really hopeful that that will, again, give a little bit more validity to that space because she is a user. She does tons of things with her pre-K classroom, and we'll talk about how it is helping her run her classroom much more economically efficiently, and that means a lot when teachers are constantly paying for those supplies out of pocket. So if you see Eileen Idit, that's really where we're trying to have her share about the work of the warehouse. So that's that.
All the great things. Speaking of great things, item 2.03, presentation update on the Superintendent Super Advisory Council activities from Student Advisory Council Vice President Tegan Richardson. And before I give you the floor, I have to give you a round of applause for taking first for Skills USA. I had the great honor, I think it was in 2019 or 18 the last time. When was that, Brittany? So it was a long time ago, to be a judge for Skills USA. And it was such an experience, and I would love for you to share with the board what exactly it is and what you had to do this year to take first place, which is so great. Yay.
I really don't like these microphones. Yeah, I competed in 2 competitions. The one that you guys judged, I did job interview. That's the one that you guys judged. And then I also did early childhood education. I am in the teaching and training pathway at AACT, so it's one of my favorite little hobbies is helping out with my mom's lesson plans and things like that. Yeah, so Skills USA, and I also competed in FCCLA right before the break. They're both CTSOs that I'm really involved in. Skills is a lot more STEM-based, in my opinion, whereas teaching and training is a lot more, or FCCLA is a lot more teaching and training and hospitality-based. I did win state president for FCCLA too, so I'm representing Washoe County as our state president, and then we also have another state officer, Mia Bloom, who is the vice president of membership. She also goes to AACT. And so for that, it's just super cool experience. A great thing that we had for FCCLA is we ended up being able to fundraise so that our kids didn't have to pay anything to go. We had about, I think, 40 students just from AACT alone, and we, I believe, are the only competing school from Washoe County for that one. And then for skills, that's pretty much everywhere. Everywhere competes skills. It's a lot more popular. It's definitely bigger than FCCLA, at least double the size. And so, yeah, that was super cool. And then about Student Advisory Council, we have our final meeting before the Student Voice Retreat, which is May 17th. Tomorrow will be our final meeting. We're just going to wrap up some little planning things. We're super excited. Everybody's super happy. We're all really excited and hope you guys can join us, even make a little hi if you just want to say hi. But yeah, we're super excited. Any questions are totally welcome. So.
Yeah, that might have been one of the highlights of my weekend. Don't care about my birthday, but you winning? Yes. I was like, what? No, that's awesome.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. No, that's really incredible. And just I remember sitting with Brittany because it was her and I doing the interviews and doing everything. And there's just so many moving parts to that event. And next year, which that's usually always around this time, correct? Maybe we can try to get more involved from the EA perspective because it is just all these kids in this room and they all have the same passions and the energy. And it's just like,
For that one, I got 5,000.
that's crazy. So amazing. So amazing. Hats off to you, my friend. All right. Moving on to item 2.04, possible action to approve an update to the authorized users list for the Education Alliance bank account with United Federal Credit Union to include Education Alliance Executive Director Sarah Gobbs-Hill.
Yeah, and so I just want to talk on that one because I realize that may be new a little bit. This mic is clearly throwing me off, you guys, so I'm trying my best. Oh, got you.
There you go.
So the reason that we want to make that change is just in the event I win the lottery and I'm no longer available to go to the United Credit Union to transfer those funds. It behooves the organization to put a secondary from the district on there, and so that's why we would want to make that change, just to give everyone context.
Any discussion on that before we move it? Nope. And then I think we removed, Melissa, did we keep you? No, removed you.
I think I'm off, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's what that was. Okay, perfect. Quick and easy. Motion to, I'll reread it. Motion to, let's see, approve and update the authorized users, adding Sarah Gobbs-Hill to our account. Anybody? Yep. And second. I know, that's why I kind of hesitated. I'm like, the way it's written is a little
Yeah.
different.
So
But we
have
can-
already made that. I think the motion that we're trying to do is to move the comptroller on, which I realize it doesn't say that in the agenda. I think that we got that mixed up. Because I am on there now, on the account. What I want to do is be able to add the
That's why I was
comptroller.
like, was something added or onto it?
Based on, can't right now. Have to
Yeah,
do
so we'll
it
put it to June.
Yep, thank you.
Okay,
Sorry, guys.
no worries.
No, that was me.
You know what, you can't be perfect all the time, Sarah.
I'm still just learning. I want to make sure that I'm getting this out so that we have, clear transparency in terms of what we're doing, but sometimes in the iterations of the agenda. So thank you for your
Okay,
patience.
so we need a motion, yeah. We need a motion?
No, I don't
No,
think so at this point
move
because
it.
we're going to
Well,
make it for June.
Yeah, just
Okay.
put it in June. Okay,
The item is to update the users list, so couldn't the comptroller be an update to the users list?
His name would have to be posted on there for public meeting.
got it.
And
Say we
name-
can,
And name or position?
both,
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
okay, I'll just put a note for June.
Yeah, could we just make it the position?
I'd
so
like to
that-
make it the position
Yeah.
because that way it makes sense. Okay.
All right, hopping over to item 2.05, presentation by Data Analytics Coordinator, JT Stark, and Program Evaluator Sarah Trescher. I'm saying that correct? Regarding the Washoe County School District Research and Evaluation Department and how the Education Alliance can use the information provided to support schools and community partnerships.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. For the record, Dr. Laura Davidson, Director of Research and Evaluation, not JT Stark, but filling in for him tonight, just to clarify. Also here with Dr. Sarah Trescher in our office. So we were invited tonight to just present a couple of different options to consider for how Ed Alliance could think about selecting schools for additional allocations, funding, resources, anything that you may be fundraising for. It's very common practice for grant applications and district decisions, so we're happy to help you think through some ideas for selecting schools that would really fit the mission and vision of Ed Alliance at this time. So tonight's really going to be just about presenting some options, but I think the moral of the story is we have lots of data and we can run out many, many different models and options for you after this meeting, but just wanted to give you a sampling of some of the things we were thinking about. So if you can just scroll down a little bit, you'll see the three options. These are just some of our most common options that we tend to use in our district. So that option one there is probably the one that you see most frequently used, and that's leveraging the Nevada School Performance Framework. You may know this framework as star ratings. That's the kind of name that we often give to our star rating system, but basically the federal government requires every state to have some sort of system for rating schools, and the Nevada School Performance Framework is what we use here. It's an index score that runs from 0 to 100, with 100 being the highest possible score you can get of the measures that you see there. The models are a little bit different for elementary and middle school versus high school, so I can walk you through just what some of those measures are. But one of the benefits of using the Nevada School Performance Framework is it's easily visible to the community. All the data is posted publicly. It's a really consistent measure. It's used in every school in our state. It's never going to tell the entire school picture, of course, in a single measure, but it does have a lot of measures included within it, and they're all really reliable, valid measures. So that is one reason why we tend to use it a lot for these types of rankings. So for elementary and middle school, it's mainly based on standardized test scores, so academic achievement on Smarter Balanced, growth on those measures, whether students who aren't proficient on those measures are moving towards proficiency, student engagement, that's mainly based on chronic absenteeism, so our kids coming to school on a regular basis, and then English learner achievement on a particular test called the Access Test. For high school, it's a really different measure, but relies on graduation rates, including fifth-year graduation rates. So even if we don't get them there by the end of 4 years, are we making growth with them in their fifth year and getting them to graduate? Academic achievement, that's mainly based on the ACT, and then college and career readiness, or kids taking those advanced courses so that they're gaining exposure to the more rigorous content that's going to prepare them really well for after graduation, and then chronic absenteeism and English learner achievement. So the state uses the same framework for every school in the state, and then what they do is they take that index score and assign they use the index score essentially to pick the bottom 5% of all schools and give them a particular designation. There's also additional designations for schools that have substantial achievement gaps, and those are state defined as well. So that is one option. We use it in our district. We actually are using some strategic plan funds right now for schools that have been identified through the state Nevada School Performance Framework measure. So it's a very reliable data source. But option 2 and 3 are really more choose your own adventure. So I'll turn that over to Sarah to talk a little bit about some of those options, and then happy to just brainstorm and talk through some different options for you.
Good afternoon, Sarah Trescher for the record, Madam President, board members. Thank you for having us this afternoon. So as Laura alluded to, this is kind of a mix and match approach. We would take 2 to 3 year averages, and you can see that some of the indicators are the same indicators that we see in the Nevada School Performance Framework. So academic achievement, growth, opportunity gaps, engagement, graduation rates, college and career readiness. In this approach, we would separate this out by elementary, middle, and high school, take an average of those achievements for the past couple of years, and then rank schools based on that. One advantage of this approach is, again, you get to customize it, so you can actually look at enrollment and achievement numbers for schools by student groups. So the average enrollment or achievement score by school for students who receive free and reduced lunch, students with IEPs, English learners, foster or homeless students. And you can average those, or you can pick ones that you want to focus on, which gets us into option 3, which is if you have a specific project or goal or something that you want to focus on in that funding and how you best want to support students in schools with that funding model. If we have the data to do that, that is something we should be able to do and with that ranking system.
So just to put this in context, we're looking at these as potential ways that we could change the distribution that we have done standardly, sort of X dollar amount per school. And so this may be something that, you know, if you guys like one, then that's something I would work with the data department to give you an idea of what that distribution would look like when we're coming to the distribution of funds at the school level. Or if 2, you're like, oh, we want to customize it, like, but using these sort of metrics, this is an ability for us to connect, again, with the expertise at the district to think about how we're giving out the funds to try to be, to impact the population that we're trying to serve the most. And so you guys know right now, no matter what school it is, it's the same dollar amount to every school. And so this is just us thinking through, oh, what are some other ways that we could do it? A real yes and to sort of what the board has been interested going forward, realizing that long term, what we're hoping to do is both fundraise to support things that could be, you know, serve the district at a larger level as well as at the school. So just to give that context.
And we don't have. Okay.
Sir, I had a question. Have we ever done an assessment of the impact of the money we're sending to each school, and is there a differential in how they're impacting the schools?
So historically, right now, that has not been done, as far as I know. A lot of what we do is, you know, we circle back with teachers to find out how they're doing it, and because school populations can be so different, I don't think that we've been as analytical maybe as we could going forward. So no, at this point.
No, I was just thinking we're going to do this. Is there a reason to move in this direction? Or, I mean, are we trying, you know what I mean? I mean, if it's.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, why would we want to explore this? Sorry, why would we want to explore this? It really has to do with, like, as you're looking at school to school, we have some schools that maybe have, you know, 220 kids at the school. And then we have some schools that have 1,500 kids at the school. We have some schools that, in, you know, just using some of these rankings here, may have, you know, 98% free and reduced lunch students or have the Title I funding, and other ones that have much less of that, you know, underserved population. And so because we haven't been as intentional with how we want to address that, that's why we're coming back to this, with this idea that, you know, if, for example, we wanted to focus in on something like early childhood learning, right, then we could look at, you know, the population that is being served. You know, if this school has 3 or 4 more schools that are serving that population versus the other. Yeah. So it's a way to just get a little bit more precise.
I'm curious, does the district also maintain data as it pertains to other funding sources for Washoe County schools? So aside from per pupil funding, but funding that they might receive from you know, parent organizations, community organizations, et cetera?
I think it depends on the funding source. Certainly anything that's grant funded, we would keep track of. Parent organizations are, I'm sure, tracked somewhere, not easily accessible or something that we look at consistently, but the grant funds for sure.
Where do the bubble schools fit in on this?
Yeah, so bubble schools is just a general term for not picking the lowest performing schools, essentially. So it's a term that gets used lots of different ways, but I know different funders in the past have wanted to not necessarily fund schools that are the, quote unquote, state defined lowest performing schools, because they do receive other funding sources through that state performance framework system. And so they may select schools that maybe just miss the cut score for it, or something that is kind of in the middle. So maybe they're not getting tons of funding from parent-teacher organizations who are at really high-achieving schools necessarily, but schools in the middle. So if you open it to bubble schools, there's a whole lot of different ways that we could look at that as well.
And do you, and this kind of maybe two odd questions. One is, if you have a lower performing school, do you kind of track, like, is it a school leadership problem, or is it a school leadership problem at that school? And maybe there's another school that has good leadership and some projects that you're seeing, like a little bit to the question over here, like, we'd rather not throw good money after bad leadership, but yet those schools still need help. So is there a way that you can understand, like, where there might be schools that are the best investment at any given point in time?
I wouldn't say we keep like a specific metric of this school is not a good investment, it's going down, or going down, stay away, anything like that. I think to your point, we could add in some additional measures, like if there maybe is a new principal, or they've had a lot of turnover. I mean, those are types of things that we collect centrally and could add to any kind of a model that you might want to use for selection purposes. So that's one way that we could kind of look at that.
And then similarly, is there projects, do you know, I think there was another question, like, if the schools that need help, do you understand what the projects they most need help with, and that be? Yeah. Oh, is that better? Could you hear that? Okay.
I can hear it, yeah, for sure. So we do keep a record of what supports have been funded at every school based on needs. So if we have a grant that's supporting some instructional coaches at a school, or a grant that's supporting additional social workers at schools that have been identified as needing support, that we do keep in a fairly large spreadsheet, as you can imagine. So those are things that we could track in that way.
Thank you.
I just wanted to come back to last meeting for those of you who weren't there, because it was really helpful when we were talking about, hey, if we want to focus in some of the use of our funds, particularly how we were referring to bubble schools were the ones that aren't quite eligible for Title I funding, but that have been recognized as needing the need. And it was really under the interim superintendent, and I'm going to point to you, Dr. McNeil, who just kind of suggested that. And I think that working in tandem with leadership to understand what are the schools that are still a good investment, and sort of to the leadership question, like leadership, educational leadership being a progression, and so sometimes it's really showing up really well, and so that's a little bit of that work that we've been doing to identify when it's going to be able to, move the needle. To your point,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed last meeting, so I'm asking a bunch of stupid questions you guys probably already answered, but is this, we moved from taking part of the revenues from some of the monies we have to a grant-based type of program, project-based kind of funding. Is that kind of where we'd want to go? And then that way we could really assess the impact of the project, or?
So that's a really good question. I think what we decided to do last time is we decided to do, to give a standard amount to 103 different schools, and then we're holding back a pool of funding, which we're going to allow people to apply with a project, and then we also, under suggestion of Dr. McNeil, asked some of the higher or less need schools, like any school that had less than 25% free and reduced lunch population. We decided we would ask them if they'd be willing to pass on the funding that we were giving, to see if they would be interested in giving it back to a school that had a higher population, and we had 5 of 15 say yes. So of that, we were looking to kind of make a bigger impact, because some of the feedback that I had gotten from stakeholders was just, when you have a smaller dollar amount, sometimes it's harder to move the needle, and if we could give people a little bit more, then maybe they could have an impactful project. So the examples that were shared with me were things like at Bernice Matthews, they were able to buy outdoor equipment, right? The playground equipment, or the manipulatives that were used for a high needs classroom with students on the autistic spectrum and things like that. And so some of those, that's where we were coming back. So kind of looking both ways as we could, just this constant improvement with this idea that hopefully we're bringing in this dollar amount here that serves this, and this other piece that's helping that, you know, as we continue to build sort of that pipeline here for Education Alliance.
I have another quick question. It's actually not a quick question at all, and I apologize in advance. It's just a standard thing someone says when they have a big question, I think. I'm curious to know, I mean, you're in the data day in, day out. You're watching trends amongst the student population and at our schools. What would you say the data show right now at this point in the school year are some of the more concerning trends that additional funding, you know, from an Education Alliance or another community, you know, group or entity might be able to move the needle on? So I'm thinking of one in particular, student absenteeism. We know that's a huge topic, but what are some of the other more concerning trends you're seeing that we may be able to step in and do something to help with?
It's a good question. I was happy to look last week and see chronic absenteeism is moving in the right direction this year. So we're happy to see that, but still very, very high. And that's one that we've flagged for all of our community partners. We just really, it's a very actionable measure, I think, too. There's lots of things with additional funds that schools can do to support chronic absenteeism. So we like to flag that one a lot. Our proficiency rates for ELA, English Language Arts, and math are still really struggling from where we were pre-pandemic. So we are down from pre-pandemic, just as everyone is nationally. And I think as we have seen some funds sunset from ESSERs, even though we've gotten a huge influx of funds through strategic plan funds and per pupil funding, we still just know we have a lot of work to do in just basic academics and recovery post-pandemic. If I were to highlight one area in particular that we talk a lot about, it's middle school math. We have presented that frequently, and that's still an area when we look at those numbers. We really want our kiddos to be prepared for high school and middle school math. It's just, as we've seen nationally, when I think chronic absenteeism relates to that too, it's just if those skills really build upon themselves. So when students have missed some of those skills along the way because of the pandemic or absenteeism or other things, it just gets really hard to catch up in math in particular. So I think that if I were to flag two areas, absenteeism and middle school math are definitely some of the areas that we're most concerned about. But I think we've had a lot of conversations too about just need for early childhood supports again, and how many of our students are coming in with, you know, bigger needs at post-pandemic. So anything in the early childhood area, I think, is something that we'd pay attention to as well.
I have a question, but I'm trying to formulate it. It'll be an email, not a, I have one, I don't know, I'll figure it out. Thank you. Does anyone have any other discussion? No? Thank you both so much for coming, for the conversation, for the insights. I think very helpful to hear that as we pave a way, which is a good segue to the next conversation, the next agenda item. Dang, I really wish I had that question. It'll be an email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. It threw me off for a second. I was like, here we go. Item 2.06, consideration and approval of a new funding distribution model to schools for funds raised through 2024 signature fundraising event, Evening of Pure Imagination.
So this one, just going back to the model, if you guys like, if one of them really speaks to you, 1 versus 2, what I'd love is for us to make a motion to either accept, option 1 or 2, and then what I can do is I can work with the data department to then present, you guys the specific data of what that would look like. So if we decided to go with a star rating, then we would just, you guys as a board would be like, yep, we feel like this is a great way to think about how we're gonna redistribute our funding for next academic year. Or if it's model 2, you know, or option 2, then we could figure out specific pieces. But even if just at this group, if you guys give me like sort of an idea of like which direction you like, we can just continue to move forward. If you're like, oh gosh, I'd like to see this, and we can vote on it, you know, that in June, that is fine as well. I just want you guys abreast, because what I want to do is be able to make the decision so that by the time we have the funds done, we can get funds into teachers' hands ASAP. And that's always, there's always been a little bit of a lag time, and from talking from the stakeholders, yourselves included, that was some of the feedback that I got. We would like to improve as we go forward. You know, if we do the fundraising in September, can we wait for all funds to come in, and then to the beginning of the calendar year, get that over to teachers? So that's what this motion is all about.
Wait, is this 2023 or 2024?
2024, 25.
Okay.
Next year. So we're thinking ahead. We're ahead. So that's why I'm like, if you guys are like, well, I'd really like to see this, or you want to like us to bring up so you can see kind of what this would look like weighted, you know, a weighted distribution, if you will. I'm thinking about an equation. I could give this to you before the June meeting. I just want you guys really abreast of like as we're changing this, and to feel like you're getting the information so it's not blindsided, because I feel like it's a change, a big change.
As I'm thinking through, I don't know that I'm seeing exactly the option that we might need in order to make the best decisions, at least not yet. I think it's probably something in the customizable space, but I think the question before that is, do we want to change our priorities? And do we want to go to a more project-based model for specific schools, or do we want to, you know, do something similar to what we've done in the Caring for Classrooms era, in terms of, you know, choosing, you know, specific areas that we want to see the needle move on, and then apply funding in those spaces. So I'm thinking we probably need to do a little bit more work in the priority space of, these are the issues we're prioritizing, or the things that we're targeting, and so these are the data that we need in order to make the best decisions about supporting those areas.
Well, and not to jump ahead, because we will be talking about this in 2.7, but if we want to leave it at this point, that like, I'd like to come back and think about how this data can inform the distribution. I feel like that could be a great space. We don't have to vote on it, and I'll take, hey, this is an action item. I would love to tell you a little bit of the work that I have been doing in terms of thinking about Caring for Classroom, and maybe the focus for this year. That feels like it's a little bit closer to what you're talking about based on stakeholder conversations I've had. But I was saving that until 2.07, so.
I think on, I think it might be worthwhile to, and I forget, I know it was like Landon, Christine, I forget, wasn't it, but when we had the committee where we reviewed all of the, what was it, 87 pages of submissions, maybe to revisit that, just as like a basis of like, and now granted, things at schools might be different now, but that's kind of our case study of what teachers, principals, schools had asked for. Because if you remember, like, one school wanted a playground, and I think 80 schools wanted printers for their materials, and so those are different price points, and obviously very different things. And then a lot of them are teacher appreciation things too, which we haven't really talked much about this as well. And so I think maybe doing a case study from that, and I'll volunteer myself because I like to nerd out with stuff like that. But just to kind of see those, because we didn't select everyone, but everyone really put in a lot of, you know, time and energy into hear these issues, and here's these things, even down to a printer, which that completely floors me. I'm like, that's what you want the money for? Okay, all right, like, okay. But maybe it's taking a look at that, and then as we go through these options, you know, put those things into consideration too.
You know, I have a question. So, I mean, I was thinking about this we used to have the P16 group, and that kind of went away. And I just wonder, and I think it was kind of a group that was looking for a reason to be a little bit. And is this something that you could launch another kind of group within a subgroup within the committee to identify needs or work? And I don't know if this is an appropriate thing to do, or we just depend on the school district to take care of that. I don't know. I was just kind of wondering if there's a need to go back towards something like that So-
I think that's a great question, and how we have formed the task force this year is really a strategic and planning one and a strategic focus. So this idea that if we go out and we're looking for best practices in the educational foundation space, what is it that's working really well out in there in the nation, and how can we start to incorporate some of that here locally? And so I think that's a little bit of how I saw the strategic work this year as we're moving forward, because I do agree. I think that one of the things that everybody on this board, and I will say people that I've talked to out in our community, what they really want is they want to know that they're moving the needle on something, right? They really want to know that this organization is addressing strategic needs. And so part of what, and again, like to point to 2.7, but we're going to get there, one of the things that we have decided that we were going to do under the Caring for Classroom brand, because to be aware that the fact that people know that and there has been some sort of communication, is to try to double down on student engagement as it pertains to not only things that can be done at the school level, which is really important, and we have a lot of really good, healthy relationships, I think, there, and we cannot minimize what it means to have those direct, close relationships with students, but also to think about, can we fundraise at a higher level that allows us to also support the district as they have identified some strategic needs. And so some of the things that are still in the works are things like potentially an awareness campaign, or expanding, there's been a piloted program where it has worked on middle school engagement, and maybe we can bring that to a larger thing. So trying to bring people and inviting them in to help solve this issue that affects us all, right? And is part of a national trend, right? It is showing up in Washoe County the same way that it is showing up in a lot of places, and it's really, really a multifaceted issue with multifaceted solutions. But I think that I keep hearing, well, EA should be there. We should be doing what we can to do that. And so my answer to you right now with the P20 is, I joined in November, and I'm really trying to work through how do we enhance and build the nonprofit in a way that feels like systematically we can address the needs of our community, while trying to figure out something that feels like it is a real strategic issue that we can double down and get behind. So that's like a long way of saying, well, I don't have a plan for the P20 yet, but I feel like in time, in the next couple of quarters, we'll really know if we need to address that.
I really appreciate seeing option 1 and 2 because it starts to give us ideas, but I do like option 3 because one of the things that I'm finding too, Sarah, to your point, is the community also wants something to rally behind. So I'm almost thinking, how can Ed Alliance be like the wind beneath people's wings? Like, we have this money. Does anybody else want to go into this cause? And that's where the awareness campaign comes. So I think it all starts to trickle in. So for me, I know there's a lot of great discussion right now, but I would say I feel we need an option 3. And I would motion that we come back together, decide with data what specifically we are really trying to move the needle on, whether it's a special population, whether we're focused on middle school, but be very specific, because then I think we can measure and then build a platform on that, and then we can always change it every year. I think we could test it out and see how it works.
It's it's kind of a philosophical question, right? We start with the Run for Education, we continue with the Care to Classrooms, where we have provided some sum to every single school, right? And then we've started setting aside some money for special needs school. And I think one of the questions that you brought up here is, do we want to continue that, or do we want to just focus on certain schools that basically need the help? And I don't know what I think, although I do, you make a bigger impact, obviously, if you go to schools that need it most, but at the same time, we support the entire community, and I love this idea of we can offer it to everybody, and then you have the option of actually giving it back to the community as well. But I think is that one of the questions that we need to answer through this discussion today or in the weeks ahead?
I don't think we need to answer that necessarily right now, because I think that will come out of the strategy work that we're doing. I think that we would be a little short-sighted to just make that decision of we only want to support whatever the special population is. I also think it behooves us as an organization to slowly make the changes, keep relationships strong, right? And there's a lot to be said for the insight that we get through those individual relationships with teachers and principals. So I wouldn't want them to hear, hey, we're focusing on something like that. We're not invested in that, especially when we know what Principal for a Day can do. I think that how I see us is as we continue to go, we're like expanding our ability to welcome people into the problem-solving spaces, right? Like experts from the district, leadership from the district, our own community experiences, parents, as we're doing that, so that when we are really specific, we can tell people, yep, this is exactly why we're doing it, and this is the focus there.
So I just wanted to kind of chime in on this. Just keep in mind, like our Board of Trustees for the school district just approved their budget based on the strategic plan. And so we have a strategic plan for the district that the entire community was involved in, not only internally but externally. So I put that as kind of a thought behind when you guys are looking at the different options, because as I'm looking through it, having been the engagement portion, it's checking a lot of the boxes of what our goals are. So I think that kind of goes hand in glove with the district if we're focusing in the same manner.
And I'll jump in just a little bit here. I mean, I appreciate the data-driven approach. I think initially when Kendall, Brittany, and a few of us had this initial discussion about how do we distribute the additional money, in my opinion, like it was kind of a quick and dirty way of trying to get rid of excess money, right? It just was something that just looked good and felt good on paper without a whole lot of strategy behind it, right? I mean, it was a good strategy, and I think we got the job done considering the time limitations that we had and other limitations that we had with it. But I think moving forward, I think it's a solid idea to be more data-driven, focusing on you know, the numbers behind a lot of these schools and the stories behind some of these schools to make those types of changes. And Crystal, to your point, I'm not ready to vote on anything today because I'm, you know, too confused on what some of this stuff means. But, you know, when we flesh out some ideas and really are able to analyze a solid option 3, I mean, it'll be something that I'm excited to support. So thanks, Sarah, for giving us these options, and you guys too for presenting those to us today as well.
And then this question might be better suited for JT Stark as well. Identified 2 very crucial things that are happening right now: chronic absenteeism and middle school math. How would funds be able to be used to help, you know, adjust and figure out those issues? You know, I don't want to be here sitting, be like, hey, we're going to raise money for, you know, pizza parties. This money should be going into really obtainable metrics and goals. So I'd really be curious how, if these are 2 of these highest issues that we see, how would funds be able to use to help offset those?
Great question, Laura Davidson for the record. So I would want to loop in we have an entire office dedicated to attendance supports, and it really depends on the amount of funding available. So there are positions that we have in our district that really go out and try to work deeply and closely with families to bring kids back in. They do wraparound supports. But there's also just kind of a need to call kids. You know, one of the best things that you can do for chronic absenteeism is early identification and then bringing them back in, because what we do not want to see is have kids miss 40 days of school and they're so far behind that they already are feeling really disengaged academically and know that they can't catch up. So one of the best strategies we can do is just early intervention, and then an awareness campaign, I think, is a very solid idea. It was something that we put a lot of effort in back in pre-pandemic 18-19 to do, especially in those early grades. Kindergarten is one of the grade levels actually where we see some of the highest chronic absenteeism for lots of different reasons. And so early messaging about the importance of coming to school and building those attendance habits. So really there's a million ways to address absenteeism and lots of great research out there. I think one of the good things about the pandemic and absenteeism is we've been studying it and paying attention to it a lot more. So I think we have more ideas, but we'd loop in all of our district experts to really think through what are the biggest bang for our buck areas that we can do for absenteeism.
And just to speak to that point, that is exactly the work that we've been trying to do. Working with the data department as well as those people that are really operationalizing those solutions, because we know that, you know, I mean, to keep really good relationships, we need to make sure things are happening, to your point, right? If you're gonna put your reputation out there to bring the dollars in, you wanna make sure things are happening.
Yeah, I think just to speak to earlier points, I think we need to decide, you know, which direction we want to focus, whether it is absenteeism or what, and then that will sort of define the data that we need to see in order to develop a viable metric for that. At the same time, little chicken and egg here, sometimes it's helpful to just see kind of some overview of these data points to determine, you know, where a niche is that we could reasonably fit in. Are we going to solve absenteeism with a few $1,000s that we're able to distribute to schools? Probably not. I would like to say yes. But, you know, within maybe some of the subpopulations or within schools where we're seeing it a little bit more, you know, maybe we can funnel in a more specific way. And to do that, I think you also need to see a little bit of the data first. So it's kind of catch-22, right? We need to sort of, I think, discuss a bit more on what strategic direction we would like to take, and that can also be informed by some preliminary data at the same time, rather than kind of choosing an option 1 or option 2 up front.
Well, if we're talking bang for our buck too, even with a few $1,000s, I mean, we have a very large senior population here that care about our children. There's a 1.5-year wait list for subsidized senior housing right now. If there was a way maybe we can engage with that senior population, I know they would love to jump on a call and help maybe be the grounding force for this. So maybe we can kind of bring that into the equation as well. I'd love that.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I think we have started to solidify around student engagement being an issue is because so many people can be involved in the solution. And I think that's like, you know, we keep hearing, like, if you're a business that's willing to have high school interns, or if you're willing to, you know, volunteer your time, showing up, like calling those folks, like it can make a difference. So it feels like it would be a really good a focus for EA this year.
I just kind of had a question because I wasn't at the last meeting. I'm curious as to why we're deciding to go against giving to all school, or from all schools to now individualized populations, because I mean my high school is the #1 public high school in Nevada, and I mean that doesn't mean we don't like use the funding. And I know that we don't have a lot of like the special populations that are outlined in this draft. So that's kind of why I'm curious as to why we are deciding to move forward with a model that's more so looking at specialized populations.
That's a really good question. And just to clarify, we're not saying we're necessarily going to move away. What we're saying is it would be a weighted gift. So if your school, let's say, had a very small percentage, it means that if we were going to give X dollar, let's say it's $500, maybe you would get $300 for your school. So we would just use it as a percentage to be able to change how we give to each school. If we wanted to address a specific thing. That is the discussion we were having, you know, sort of today. But based on everything that everyone's saying, what we're going to do is we're going to come back. We'll probably work with it. We'll work with the data department to give some specific examples of what this might look like, so everybody can just feel like they're a little bit closer to what it would actually mean, and then we can make the decisions. We have not made the decision to give away to every school. It was just an ability to try to address maybe higher need population, especially as it pertains to a specific issue.
And if I could follow up real quick with that. So I'm not too familiar. You said that there were 5 schools that actually volunteered to give money back. Mm-hmm. Could you talk about that a little bit more and some of the reasons why? There you go.
There we go. So that came out of last meeting. If you guys were here, it was at the chamber. If you weren't, it's because it was a crazy snowy
Snowstorm,
day,
yeah.
right? So it was really hard to make it. But Brian hosted us there, and Dr. McNeil had mentioned, what she had said is that I think if you gave schools an option who maybe didn't have as many underserved students, that they'd be willing to give the money back to the pool. And so we just simply wrote an email asking, hey, here's $1,000 that your school's gonna get this year. If you'd be willing to let it go back into a pool for higher needs, we're gonna try to address bubble schools with that grant this year. And we had 15 schools say that they would do that. And the way that we made the criteria of folks that were on the higher end, we literally just said anybody who has 25% or less free and reduced lunch student population as identified by the Title I office, so when they do that in December, anyone who's on that list, that's how we emailed them. So that was the process that we did. And so some of those schools were like, yeah, we will give that $1,000 back to this pool of funding that you guys made motion to be able to go to more targeted amounts like you did last year, So that was very much so following the model that you guys had done before. And then one of the things that we have been trying to explore, at least on a community level, is are there other organizations that are giving to schools? And if so, could we collaborate with them? So you may have seen in our social media how we were sharing out about the Assistance League and their awards to schools. They are a partner that we are talking with about potentially maybe we could collaborate together on a specific gift.
I think one thing for me, I think Michelle brought this up with the strategic plan. Whichever direction we go in, I think it would be, we should align whichever direction we go in with something that comes out from that plan. I think that's the way we're going to get community support, and the district is going to be using those funds to what people actually said is a big need. So I think whichever direction we go in, it needs to align with that strategic plan.
I don't know where the button. Oh, it's on. It was hiding. I couldn't see it. I guess I just wanted a point of clarification. Choosing one of these models, how would that impact currently how funds are distributed? For example, we're talking about chronic absenteeism, right? And so if we're saying we really want to tackle this problem, but a school, say, just like one of our past recipients, they wanted to build a playground. Well, that doesn't necessarily impact chronic absenteeism, right? How would that impact those schools that have these special projects, or they want printers or teacher appreciation events, right?
So how I envision that right now is that we would work again with what are the evidence-based ways that changes absenteeism, and how can we support the things that are already happening at the school level with those gifts. So how this model may work is that if we had a school that was in the top quartile for absenteeism, instead of $1,000, maybe we give them $1,500, because that's how the weighted model shows up, right? That $1,500 would then be used for these evidence-based ways that we can reduce absenteeism. So we would give them that, that direction with the idea that it is connected to already strategically what the district has wanted to address. Absenteeism is lovely in the way that because it keeps coming up as a big issue, it does in fact sort of feed into the strategic plan, though it's not fully called out to the strategic plan, and that's because we know that students, if they're not in school, it really affects them whole child-wise, right? Socio-emotionally, who they are outside of school, as well as their academic performance. And so in absence of having a superintendent and us also being able to do some of our strategic planning and alignment, that's why this topic felt like it was a good fit for us.
Would we ever think of maybe, instead of giving all the schools to each individual schools, like Brian was talking, we developed a call center or a centralized kind of process to tackle these problems. So, we get a list of kids that are chronically absent and distributed them to specific folks. Maybe, I was thinking even at UNR, we could get students to provide those phone calls in the morning, or grandparents, like Brian was saying. I think that's a great idea. Is that an idea? That kind of changes the model, giving to schools versus giving to the whole system.
Well, I think, so really how I was envisioning it is a yes and, right? Like, because we have given to schools for such a long time, it can be disruptive, I think, when you change funding streams for people without letting them know it's coming. And so I think I was envisioning next year, we keep with the model that you guys have done for, how long has EA distributed this way? Only 2 years. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So I thought that this was part of the history of the organization, maybe a little bit longer than it was, but regardless, keep up those relationships, but be able to communicate the direction we're going. And so that's why I was thinking next year, what if we focus on bringing in more money, give to the schools and to the district, right? Because they've identified some really important things that could really move the needle, and they know they want to make happen. Also, could there be a way that we could invite our community partners in to do these actionable things? I think so. And I think we have to work in tandem with the district to do that, so it's effective and it makes sense and isn't an add-on to, I just don't want the things that we're doing to add burden to those folks that are already overburdened.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. So I guess we have to calculate how much we need to do to continue what we're doing, but then how much more money you have to raise to do take us to the next step. Have you guys kind of done that? I guess we don't know what we're doing, so I mean, taking it to the next step.
No. Right now, back of envelope, I'd love to see us bring it. I mean, realistically, do I think we can do it? But $500,000 this year would be amazing. And then that would allow us to give 100 to schools, like 105 to schools, and also be able to expand the middle school engagement program if they wanted to do that at about 300. But again, we're working closer with the district. Because there's been so much going on, I don't have a dialed out budget, if you will. Like, we know exactly with these union increases, this is what it would look like, and those are the things. I don't necessarily have a price point for an awareness campaign, but it would need, we really need to double or triple the amount of money we're giving. And can we do that? I'd like to say yes, guys. I'd like to say yes. And then if we fall shy of the goal, then we can figure out what we want to do with it. But that's the way I'd like us to go forward.
It seems like our model, we've had this model where we're not going after a couple big donors. We're going after, a distributive kind of contribution model. Are we thinking of going towards, like going to EL Accord or going to Pennington Foundation or some big foundations to drive some big projects we might have? Is that another way to fund these potential efforts?
I think one of the things I'm learning, and again, just full transparency here, I'm learning how that works really well with the district. And so I've been working with the grants department. The head of the grants department has had a leave of absence, so I'm still working with her in terms of how we coordinate the efforts to be the best. So to that point, there are some funders that don't necessarily come through EA, but they may be supporting the district, and we want to think about how we work really smartly together. But yes, and honestly, again, kind of jumping in, I had thought this would be closer to the end, but I would love to talk with anyone that you guys may know, because if people aren't involved with EA, we'd love to give them the opportunity and an invitation to be involved. And that doesn't mean that they have to just come to the fundraiser, right? There are other ways that we would love to be able to communicate with them, to be able to share the needs, to report back to them. And I think that's how you're going to get to the audience that you're discussing, right? Like we're really thinking about thoughtful, corporate partners as well as larger philanthropic organizations. Like, we want to be able to give them that transparency.
Any other discussion on this? Are you sure? I'm just kidding. This was, I think, really helpful. Even this time, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I think this was really helpful, and we have put together, Sarah's put together an array of task force for all the things. I think that this is a good, I don't want to say starting point, but another level of what we're trying to accomplish. And obviously, there's a lot of great opinions and ideas in here, and so I think we had on here for possible action, but I think maybe by the next board meeting, we can at least have a draft of what that can look like, and bring it in. If it has to wait, then has to wait, but I think that we can at least have that framework by then, and put a task force or two together between now and June 3rd, I think, is that board meeting. So. Yep.
So would the idea be to have something ready to go to vote on the June 3rd meeting, or to have some type of working draft that we would be able to look at and then move forward from there? And then for the sake of the minutes, would we have to have something solid in that agenda item for the sake of open meeting law, or no?
I think it would have to still, like, the wording would be like for special funding distribution, something like that, because if it does have to do with funds, especially from like our bank accounts and things like that, just to have that. I don't think it needs to have like this full, long thing of exactly what each and every thing is. I think it just sits as the high level motion for that. What are your thoughts, Michelle?
Just the general public, if they're looking at your agenda, they need to know what you're discussing. So it needs to be clear enough so that they understand what that discussion is.
And I think there is a way to be able to follow up so that you guys can see it in a little bit more detail. That will make it easier to be like, oh yes, I have an idea because I've seen this. Yeah, I think it is really hard when you're talking about numbers not to have the equation done, right? Like so, but I wanted to be able to give these guys an ability for them to be able to share what is capable, what is possible, right? Without me informing that, because I tend to think that, you know, I may have a lot of expertise, but being an expert in student data from the district is not one of them. And how do we work with the expertise that we have, you know? So that was really wanting to make sure that you guys had that, so it didn't feel like, oh, I wonder with, or I'm hearing that, but have an ability to ask the questions that you did today. So I hear you loud and clear. Bring it back, give us a little bit more meat on it so that we can kind of see it and get an idea of how it's going to be used, and then we'll go forward. At least that's my understanding from you guys today.
All right, let's move on to item 2.07, presentation, discussion, and update on the structured programs and working groups of the Education Alliance for the 2023-24 school year, 2023-24 board development, and brief update from Melissa Dedmond on all things TMCC. You want to start? Kick us off?
I can kick us off. I'm trying to think of happenings at TMCC. There's always something happening at TMCC. I know we've been very active recently in the CTE arena, the Career and Technical Education arena. A few weeks ago, we hosted a CTE night at our Edison campus, where we showcased a number of our technical and allied health professions. It was a fantastic turnout, available to the public. Got some prospective students interested in into those programs. I know we're doing a lot of marketing right now. We just had a wonderful presentation by our marketing and communications office with some of their nationally award-winning campaigns, mostly on things like Spotify and YouTube and through social media, but really reflecting the diversity of our student population and reaching out to more diverse communities, bringing them to TMCC. Of course, we're getting near to the end of the academic term, and so our commencement ceremonies will be on May 10th. We look forward to that, and yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
Wonderful. Also, all the good things, all the great things. May 10th. That's a little early this
It's
year.
a little
no?
earlier this
Yeah.
year.
So it's
A lot
like-
of it depends on when we can secure the venue.
That makes sense. Why don't we?
I'll give a quick update.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to try to roll through this because I'm looking at the time. I'm going to get you out on time, I promise. Just a really quick update. We continue to sort of modernize or digitize some of the work that we're doing in terms of just our internal processes and structures. So, you know, finances, we're streamlining our reporting and procedures. We have an upcoming 990, which we'll be diving into. So yay, finance review team, that's coming. Same thing with development and communication. We are digitizing our files, and we're exploring some digital services that we think that could be really beneficial to sort of enhance that aspect of the nonprofit. In community engagement, I think I've met with probably 40 some organizations since January, if not more, just really to share about EA and the work that we're doing and kind of invite people into this space of public education. It's been really great to talk about community need and potential collaboration. Last week I had the opportunity of attending Dave, the NSF Engines conference that was up there with a lithium battery circular economy, which was really interesting, as well as, and this is sort of like both Panasonic and TMCC, but the Panasonic community opening downtown, which is so exciting. And so it's really exciting to see what people can do. And I find whenever I have conversations out there about Education Alliance, people want to learn more and figure out how they can support the work we're doing, which is really exciting. Upcoming. Oh, Panasonic, and I don't know, Jabari, do you want to speak to it? Okay. I'm like, I mean, yeah, well, they are opening, I don't know, I might call it, it's a training center for both TMCC students, and hopefully also will be a place to invite community in.
Yeah, it has our apprenticeship program. So through TMCC, kids go there to get technical training to then graduate into a full-time position into Panasonic, as well as it's a place where we can host our community partners and work on grants to give back not only to TMCC but to the school district as well.
Super, it was really amazing, and I hope that sometime we can have a board meeting there to get an idea. It's right close to Worcester, and just a space that I really feel like is inviting community in to learn, which is powerful. Some upcoming dates, which should be on your calendar, Charles River Laboratories is giving checks to Spanish Spring High School, and that's happening this week, which we're really excited about. And then again on the 23rd to Reed High School, that is going to be at their facility. And we're just really excited. They are amazing partners, not only in the way that they are financially supporting, but we have heard time and time again from the schools that they show up. They really are there to help the community and those students with career awareness. And it's really making a difference. Like, these kids are like, oh, I get it. I get what biotechnical careers could look like. And that is apparently a very difficult aspect of the curriculum to try to translate to high schoolers. So really powerful there. And then we're having Caring for Classroom celebration on April 14th, where we'll be celebrating
May 14th.
I'm so sorry, April 24th at Glen Duncan, and where we'll be celebrating with our sponsors the giving back of $164,000, which is really awesome. And then we have solidified a date because you guys pushed for this the last board meeting. Get that evening of pure imagination date on the calendar. So it is September 21st. We are working with the row. We have all of that locked in place there. We really are going to focus on student engagement. It's going to be the focus for this one. And we have already secured 3 gifts to kick us off. So we have about $40,000 that we have raised right now, which we feel like is a good way to start next year. Obviously lots more, and I'm sure you guys have plenty of people that I should be talking to or grants that I should be putting in for, but it's exciting.
May I make a slight recommendation on a theme change for this event? Can it be Earth, Wind, and Fire themed because it's September 21st? Do you remember the 21st night of September? Please put that in the record. Thank you.
I mean, if DJ Fun doesn't play that song, I will be vastly disappointed. Everyone in this room will be.
We owe a lot, yeah, with Victoria helping with that. But that's all the updates I have. So.
One thing to touch on really quick, board development. June is going to be coming very quickly. I cannot believe it's already middle of April. And that means more opportunities for more board members. So in addition to that, also, if there's interest of the executive board, if anyone wants to try and move on up in the world of EA, there'll be some opportunities as well, but also thinking of who else in the community, like what are we missing in this group of community leaders, like just thinking ahead of that. And then as we know, that June meeting is our close of the year meeting and our little celebration mixer, all the good stuff. So still looking at a location, I think. I think that's still up there. I know Victoria is always, willing to be like, hey, if we have the space, here we go. So that location will be determined, and we'll let you all know very soon. But plan for that meeting to maybe actually go until 6, just so you can have time to mingle and meet some of our new board members. So that is all I have. All right. Do you have any public comment at this time?
We do need another finance team member, right? Just plugging that. at some point we voluntold somebody, is that what we? Yeah.
That's how I'm making eye contact with everyone. Also executive, think if you are like, I just love this place. I wish I could spend more time with Sarah Gobbs Hill. It's a really needed as we take this place in the next level, so.
All right, perfect. Well, if no public comment, again, the next board meeting, still to be determined where on location, but it'll be June 3rd, same time, 4 o'clock. And on that, we will go ahead and adjourn at 4, I'm just kidding, you wish, 5:21.